After putting together one of the best conference seasons we have seen in Cream and Crimson, has Trayce Jackson-Davis played his way into being a first-round pick?
You are Locked On Hoosiers, your daily podcast on the Indiana Hoosiers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What is up, everybody? Welcome into another episode of Locked On Hoosiers on this day. I'm your host, as always, Rude. Thank you. Listen, are your one and only daily athletics. This more there were, I would say, seen as a on pun intended even second round draft pick. He's come back together as one of the best seasons we've seen. Hoosier. The end result is that not only is Trayce Jackson-Davis, I won't say again, far more certain to be drafted, there's a chance he might be a first-round draft pick. Now, you can Google 2023 NBA mock draft and get dozens and dozens and hundreds of results. And so kind of sifting through those is I pulled a couple from people that I think well-informed and typically have a good feel, not just on the prospects, but on kind of how the league operates and who teams may be talking to, things like that. We are still very early in the process. A lot of this is kind of reactionary to how players are playing. We obviously have to go through the draft process. But my main takeaway from looking at all these drafts is that Trayce might be a first-round draft pick, which is quite the statement from where we were a year ago, where he came back. So start with the Athletic. Sam Vecini, someone I've mentioned a number of times. He released a mock draft a week ago. He has Trayce Jackson-Davis 39th. There are 30 teams in the draft. There's not 60 picks this year. Philly and Chicago had to forfeit their picks because of tampering and nonsense over there, which I thought was going to hurt Trayce Jackson-Davis. He's played his way into that not mattering, I don't think. But he has him going 39th, which actually is kind of lower ones that we've seen when looking at the some of the mock drafts. Hilariously, Jalen Hood-Schifino is in all these drafts as a first-round draft pick. I would be pretty surprised if Jalen Hood-Schifino comes back next season, just because somebody who's a locked-in first-round draft pick hardly ever returns. It happens from time to time, so I won't say there's no shot it's going to happen, but if you're a first-round draft, you have that first draft pick money staring you in the eye, typically don't come back to school and risk any sort of injury, anything like that. So it is probably far more certain he's gone. But hilariously, in this NBA mock draft, or in the Athletic mock draft, both Trayce and Jalen Hood-Schifino go to the Lakers. As I mentioned, Trayce in the late 30s, Jalen Hood-Schifino number 14 to the Lakers, which also one of the higher projections I've seen for him. That's the edge of the lottery. He seems to be someone more maybe in the 20s. And so I don't know being drafted that high, but he's in a first-round draft pick range. If you look at Bleacher Report, Trayce Jackson-Davis is the number 34 pick in Jonathan Wasserman's draft. He's another one that is someone that typically has a pretty good feel on not just the draft prospect, but itself. He has, as I said, Trayce as the 34th pick. So we're flirting with the edge of the first round now at this point. Again, super interesting. It is that is as high as anyone. Trayce Jackson-Davis. That was surprising to see. But again, it's a testament to how much he's improved. Similarly, well, not similarly, I should say Jalen Hood-Schifino in this one is 18th to the Houston Rockets. That feels more likely in the range of where he may go, unless he shows out big in the last couple weeks of the season in the tournaments. Trayce Jackson-Davis, he was drafted to Philly, so he would be Joel Embiid's backup. A good person to learn from if you're going to play behind a big, and that's an offense built around a guy who posts up a lot. We'll talk a lot more about fit and all that projection stuff after the season's over. I just thought this was an interesting look because really the last time we talked about this, Trayce wasn't a draft pick. Draft trust. Now Jonathan Gavone, they haven't released a draft since February 4th. I would imagine that they'll right around CH. But even the February before is wild was projected as the 43rd picks in Celtics. So you can certainly tack on a couple more spots and expect him to go a little bit higher. Similarly, Jalen Hood-Schifino, 20th to the Phoenix Suns. I'm not sure Phoenix even owns that draft pick anymore with Kevin Durant going to Phoenix, but 20th, 18th, 20th, kind of around there, I think is the more realistic range for Jalen. But I think late 30s, early 40s is what we're looking at for Trayce Jackson-Davis, maybe even into the early 30s. Typically, once you get late first round, early second round, all you need is one team to really fall in love with you. And they'll just go get their guy. Interestingly, right now, the Pacers have the 30th pick. They have the Celtics first round draft pick this year. So maybe Trayce stays home and plays for the Pacers. Who knows? I think everybody would love that, but all it takes is really one team to fall in love with you, and that could determine you being either the 26th pick if there's a lot of variance around. Add some Grace Berger. There are few things harder to find than the WBF. So there are a couple. There's only 12 picks in the first round. Grace is typically not one of them. She's kind of on the edge. Very interestingly, the first pick of the second round is the Indiana Fever. And many times on mock drafts, I don't know if it's simply a convenience that season tickets. And I think that for people, if she goes to the Fever and actually stays there, I will happily buy season tickets. So maybe as we get closer to the end of the season, there is like very little time between the end of the tournament and the WNBA draft. I think it's like a week. So we won't really have a lot of time to see projections or anything. But Grace seems like someone who will be drafted, maybe not a first-round draft pick, though. Let's look at some bracketology. Before we do that, though, let's talk about our friends at FanDuel. You guys know how much we love our new sponsors at FanDuel. It's the midway point of the NBA season. The NBA actually is back in action tonight. It's a perfect time to download FanDuel, America's #1 sports book, because new customers get a no-sweat first bet up to $1,000. That's bonus bets back if your first bet does not win. Just download the FanDuel Sportsbook app. It's safe, secure, super easy to use. Then you can bet on everything from money line to point scores and threes drained. Plus, FanDuel even lets you combine bets for a chance at a bigger payout. Same game parlay. So don't miss your chance to get your no sweat first bet up to $1,000 in bonus bets when you go to FanDuel.com/locked on to learn more. Make every moment more with an official sports bets betting partner of the NBA. Big thanks to you guys for making us your first listen every single day. Also, make sure you check out Locked On College Basketball. They have all the experts, the insiders, the coaches, the players, everything around the college basketball landscape. Locked On College Basketball, available on YouTube, wherever you guys listen to podcasts. It is a wild time for college basketball. I'm recording this on Wednesday night. The Brandon Miller situation at Alabama is an absolute mess. From Nate Oates' comments about it, the fact he's even playing feels wild to me. And then game nights in the stands are chanting "lock him up." It does not seem like a healthy situation for anyone involved. I'm guys who Locked On College Basketball have touched on that, but what a mess of a situation there. Before we dive into bracketology, if you guys did not see, over the weekend, Cody Zeller signed with the Miami Heat. If you remember, Victor Oladipo also with the Miami Heat. So Cody and Vic have been reunited in Miami. If you need an NBA team to root for the remainder of the season, Miami Heat, and pretend they're the 2012-13 IU Hoosiers. Let's look at some bracketology. It should be noted inside, this was from Tuesday morning. So pre-IU losing to Michigan State was when this one came out. It wasn't a bad loss, so I don't think it'll drastically change what the Hoosiers' standing is in the tournament. As I mentioned on Tuesday's episode, a lot of teams around the Hoosiers lost on Tuesday in terms of around their seed line. So IU is a 4 seed in this. I don't imagine they drop much, maybe to a 5 seed right now. So in this one, IU is a 4 seed, still in the Louisville region. That would be I made my point before that that would be a terrific break for the Hoosiers. They would be a 4 seed against Yale in the 4-13 matchup, playing, and then if they win that to get to the Sweet 16, they would have to play 5 seed Creighton or 12 seed Kent State. They would be in Alabama's region. I think that Alabama is not going to have neutral fan support after everything that's gone on in the last few weeks. And I also don't think neutral fans at Louisville for an IU basketball. That would be an IU home game. Alabama, NC State 8 seed, Memphis as the 9 seed. IU would be the home team in this tournament regardless. Short of literally Louisville playing, maybe Kentucky, IU is going to be the home team, and Louisville and Kentucky are not making the tournament. The other teams in this bracket, UCLA is your 2 seed, Virginia is your 3 seed, TCU is your 6 seed, Illinois is the 7 seed. I don't think Illinois would get past enough teams to ever meet IU, but that would be a favorable matchup. Nevada and Steve Alford as an 11 seed, potentially they're in the play-in game. So that seems like a pretty favorable bracket. put IU really with almost anybody and put them in Louisville, and assuming they can get to the Sweet 16, I like those chances. The 1 seeds are Houston, Purdue, Kansas, and Alabama, as mentioned. 2 seeds are UCLA, Texas, Baylor, and Arizona. IU is, I mean, we've talked about this. This is obviously kind of down. I use a 4 seed, and Purdue was the 1 seed, and then there's a drop off after that to the next seed, who is Northwestern at 6. So despite Northwestern and how well they're playing, they're still just resume wise do not have as strong of one as the Hoosiers do. We mentioned Michigan, or I don't know if I mentioned, but Michigan State's a 7 seed, Illinois is, Maryland is, Iowa's an 8 seed. Excuse me, Kentucky is an 8 seed. They're still bad, but if this would be a Kentucky-Purdue matchup, and earnestly, I don't know who I'd want to lose more in that one. That would be really tough. That's a lose-lose or win-win situation, depending on how you look at it. You get to make fun of somebody regardless. Rutgers is a 9 seed, and that may be all of the Big Ten teams. I think it is everything. Or Wisconsin is an 11 seed as a play-in against USC. So, I don't think this is a year that they're breaking the Big Ten doesn't have a national champion curse. Purdue is not winning a national championship. Their guard play is not good enough. IU, we talked a lot about their complete lack of consistency, and I don't think they can do enough between now and the tournament for me to believe that they can play however many consecutive games at a high level without any kind of fall off. So they could do it. Their ceiling's high enough to do it, but I don't know that I trust them to do it. And then after that, you're talking like miracle runs. So not a great look for the Big Ten to snap that national champions curse. On the women's side, there's not a lot to update. IU still clearly a 2 seed, or the number 2 overall seed. So a 1 seed with South Carolina. Alabama and Oklahoma State would be the 8-9 matchup. All of that would obviously take place in Bloomington. Potential tasty little Arizona rematch in the Sweet 16 in this bracket. Also, Villanova is the 4 seed. Ohio State is the 6 seed. Vatech is the 3 seed. Utah is the 2 seed. I like the Hoosiers against everybody in that. I don't. Again, I've said this a couple times. Short of South Carolina, there isn't a team I don't think Indiana wouldn't be favored against. LSU would be an intriguing matchup, but I think the Hoosiers are better. UConn is not what they were last season. Selfishly, I'd like to play UConn again. It's probably not going to happen until the Final Four. UConn lost. Maybe they drop down to a 2 seed. Maybe you get them in the Elite 8. You're projecting a lot from that point, but I just want revenge against UConn. Stanford is a team the Hoosiers played, I believe, last season. A lot of things. It's been a long year. I believe they played them last season in the Bahamas. I'd be fine with a rematch there as well. So, and then your other 2 seeds are Iowa and Maryland, who are probably staying as 2 seeds, and LSU, who we mentioned. It'd be a fun matchup between Mackenzie Holmes and not Diamond Miller. I'm blanking Millen last year, but it'd be a fun match. But I just think that the Hoosiers are a better team than LSU is. So coming up against them, I feel pretty good. The men's team never brings in none of those are things I would use to describe them. Angel Reese. I knew it had Reese in it. Angel Reese for LSU. Be a fun matchup with her and Mackenzie Holmes. So we'll see how that shakes out. We still have plenty of time before that. Reminder, IU is the outright Big Ten champions. For no reason. Just wanted to bring that up. Let's look at the men's Big Ten standings. We haven't really done that. It's an absolute mess, but let's try to look ahead, project a little bit, because the Hoosiers are in a race for a double. probably their main concern right now. We'll see how close they are here in just one moment. As I record, Maryland handled Minnesota, which is not a surprise. Minnesota is 1-15 in the Big Ten this season. Goes to show how frustrating that game was. Again, that was almost their second win. Is about to put the finishing touches on Iowa to move to 8-9 and drop Iowa to 9-8. That is relevant because there is just a mess of teams that are either 9-7 or 10-7 right now, all with a chance to, get as high as the 2 seed, but realistically, they're all playing for the 3 and 4 seed, short of Northwestern, really, which nothing has really indicated they would. Now, they do have Maryland at Maryland, Rutgers at Rutgers. 3 of their last 4 games are on the road, so there's still a chance to flip up and make this more of a mess, but I'll give them at least right now the benefit of it because they also have some cushion against everybody else. They have fewer losses than everyone else right now. Looking at, as I'm recording, IU is because they're at 10-7 and they just simply have one more game played and one more win than everybody else. Maryland, that win tonight, bumped them up, and they have the head-to-head tiebreaker with IU, so they are the 3 seed. We mentioned Iowa is about to drop to 9-8. That's good for Indiana because they do not have the tiebreaker there. And then you have a bunch of other teams. Illinois is 9-7. Michigan State is 9-7. Rutgers is 9-7. Michigan is 9-7. IU will play Michigan. They will play Iowa as well. Getting that win will also help for tiebreaker reasons. But if Iowa has another loss, they're probably not in the running against IU. So just eliminating them from the race entirely will help. Securing that tiebreaker would really help. But look at what is going to be a mess of a race. They still get to play Minnesota. They get to play Penn State. They host Michigan and host Northwestern. So not the hardest of schedules, but also they lost 3 straight games to IU, Illinois, and Nebraska before a 1-point win against Wisconsin. So it's not like they're high currently. If the Hoosiers were Maryland, they're going to lose. They really need Maryland to lose again, and probably multiple times, because the chances of IU beating Purdue on Saturday are pretty low. Maryland plays at home against Northwestern, and then at Ohio State and at Penn State. So I'm surprised if they lost another game in that stretch. Seems right now IU might be fighting with itself to secure that 4 seed. Having the tiebreaker over Illinois will certainly help. But splitting with Michigan State isn't the worst thing in terms of tiebreakers. Winning that last game of the season against Michigan could be really important in this race as well. So I haven't really talked about the Big Ten standings because they are a damn mess. But with 3 games left, every one of these games is important for a number of reasons. It's also why winning at Michigan State last night would have been really big, because you secure that tiebreaker and you would be alone in third with, you could realistically catch Northwestern. Now you're just battling for third and fourth, I think. So also, I don't know how much all this matters because IU sucks in the Big Ten tournament traditionally anyway. They didn't last season, but it sure would be nice to get that double bye and a potentially easy. I don't want to say easier opponent necessarily, but just having that extra rest. We saw how much it killed Indiana last year to have to win a number of games in a row and then go to the play-in game and go across the country. Some of that's going to be taken out just by how well Indiana played, but get the double bye, not having to do the play-in game, all of that. I mean, we saw how exhausted Trayce looked. The less games you can play right now, the better. Giving him more time to rest and this team more time to rest, the better. So secure that double bye in the coming weeks, or in the coming week, really. I think that's going to be IU's main focus. We'll kind of keep updated, keep an eye on that, and see where the Hoosiers stand when it comes to the Big Ten standings. But it's not great unless they somehow pull out a win against Purdue and Mackey, because you kind of pencil in a loss there, and things could get kind of hairy depending on how other results shake out. That Michigan game at the end of the season is going to be a really important one, I think. Thanks again, guys, for making Locked On Hoosiers your first listen every day. We'll be back with you tomorrow to preview both the IU-Purdue game and the IU-Iowa women's game over the week. Second listen, check out our brand new podcast, Locked On College Basketball. Isaac Shade and Andy Patton bring you everything you need to know on and off the court. Plus, hear from big-name experts, coaches, and players throughout the basketball landscape. Locked On College Basketball, available on YouTube and wherever you get podcasts. Follow us on Twitter. If you're still listening, give us a rating on iTunes. It helps us out a ton, pleases those algorithm gods, and we know how much algorithms are important and whatnot. And plus, I really greatly appreciate everyone who does it. As always, though, guys, to the end of the week, I hope you guys survive through this Thursday. And most importantly, Elliot,